Okay, hello everyone. How is everyone feeling today? Oh, cool. Okay, that gives me a good motivation to go. Okay, so I wanted to ask you all a question. How many of you spend hours working on something, asked someone for feedback, and all that feedback was really hurtful? And you thought that basically all this work that you put in was quickly shot down. And like, I'm sure we've all been there, we've all done that, and it's really hard. So my topic for today is the art of humanizing pull request. My name is Ankita Kulkarni. I'm a software developer at Wrangle.io. Today, I'm going to show you ways on how you can be more empathetic and how to respond to feedback and how actually code reviews are interpreted by your peers. So next time when you provide feedback, you're the reviewer, the reviewee, or wherever in that process, you at least have some tips to go by. So we are going to go through what exactly is a pull request, how to create one, how to review one, and how to respond to feedback gracefully. So let's begin. What is a pull request? I know this might be basic to some, but until a couple years ago, I didn't know what it was. So I'm going to share that anyway. So it's basically a GitHub's popular way of doing code reviews. You'll have a new pull request button on GitHub. That's once you click that, and it checks against your branch, and that's what a PR is. It's a way of initiating code reviews. Once a PR is sent, interested parties would basically come in, provide feedback, ask, put some comments in, discuss any potential modifications, and stuff like that. So how to create a pull request? We all know that before you actually start creating a pull request, there's a lot that goes on before you create a pull request. So I'm going to talk about the process of that and how I go about doing some of the things, and hopefully that will actually help some of y'all. All right, first thing, breaking down your story or feature. I'm sure we've all built a to-do list in some form in our developer life, right? So before you start working on any story or feature, whatever you want to call it, in your workflow, I would suggest making a mental or written note about it on how you want to break it down into several smaller PRs. So everyone cool with PRs? PR, pull requests? Okay. I didn't see anyone saying no, so I'm going to go with that. So breaking down into smaller PRs, it doesn't just help you a reviewer, but also helps you to keep track of your progress. Let's say if I were to break something, which has happened, and it was very easy to track it down because I did it in multiple PRs to basically revert that specific commit. It also helps as a developer, to organize your code a lot better. So for this story, as a user, I can add or delete items from the list. This is how I would break it down. First PR, add a text box and add button on the page. And you're like, okay, this is too basic. Are you kidding me? We'll do a PR just for this. And this is like the foundation PR for me. A lot of times we don't know where the code is supposed to, be in the code base, what styling, designs, and a bunch of different small little things. This could be your PR for that. Any questions you may have, you can use this PR as an opportunity to ask your teammates about that. So this is like a foundation one, I would say. I'm a big fan of style components. I take this as an opportunity to set up a small design system as well for my story. That really helps me help style the rest of the PRs. The second PR would be clicking on add button adds the item to the list. The third one is clicking on delete deletes item from the list. And this way, if I were to break on PR number 2, I could easily revert it. So yeah, try to keep the scope of your PR to a single issue by breaking it down. And it's in line with the programmer's oath that we all took, right? I will make frequent small releases so that I do not impede the progress of others. And by Robert C. Martin from Clean Code. And if you think about it, larger the request, longer it's going to take for it to be approved. I've seen personally, in my personal experience, whenever I have like smaller PRs, they go in faster, they get merged in faster with like lesser feedback versus like bigger PRs, which takes a while. Because your coworker is gonna be like, I'm busy building something myself. I'm gonna take a look at it at the end of the day or something like that. And you will get reviewer blessings for doing so. I mean, I can take a blessing, not sure about you. Imagine like if your coworker blasted this really huge PR, and this has happened. I did not want to review it. Like, I was like, oh my God, I have to go away from my feature and do this. So, yeah, don't do that. Break it down into smaller PRs. I'm telling you, nobody will tell you that, but I'm here to tell you this now. And yeah, hashtag blessings. I hope you appreciate that, right, Twitter world. Okay, so now that you have created a PR, for example, so this is how I would add comments on your PR as well. So let's say you're doing something unusual, something that you wanted to take the right way, you wanted to do the right way, but you couldn't. You took you hacked it up, basically, and we have all been there. Add a comment on your PR explaining why you did what you did. Any library that you used. Now, this is a bit controversial because we expect the reviewers to also look up the library. But sometimes it gets harder, when there are a lot of coworkers. So adding a comment definitely helps. Adding screenshots or GIFs. So for a story like this, I'm all about stories, by the way, because that's how I work in the Agile world. So as a user, So yeah, as a user, I would like to view every screen using the tab bar. And this is literally something I built like a couple months ago, to be honest. And what I did was add a GIF. Now, I know that screenshot works. In a lot of the cases, it might. But personally, I like to go an extra step further by actually creating a GIF for it. Because in this story, for the bottom navigation, I've used a new tool for called React Navigation in that. I made the choice for making that tool. I'm showing active and inactive states for that, and also setting up several screens for React Navigation as well. So this is huge for me. So I want to show off my work as well using GIFs. That's also another way of looking at it. So there are a couple of tools. One is LiceCap and one is GetCap. Both of these tools are really good. All you have to do is select a box on the screen, and it will export it as a GIF for you, which is very simple. So if you all are thinking like, hey, this is way too much work, trust me, it will get to approval faster. So while you're writing code, your tests are there. Your tests are there to test your logic, but they're also documentation for your code. Your future self is going to thank you for that, because we all forget what we did a couple months ago or something. I don't know. So I forget what I did even last week some of the time, some of the decisions that I make, because how fast the agile world is and how fast we go. So if you're doing something complex, write a test for that. Write a test explaining why you did what you did. And your code should make sense to everyone, not just you. So I'm also of the opinion that, let me get my emoji there. Yeah. I'm also of the opinion that don't litter the code with code comments. I've seen that, I can't think of a function name. Let me put a code comment there. And it's like, why don't you write a test, explaining the same thing and that different scenario as well. So I do get it that there are some cases where it's like code comments are necessary. Go for it. I'm not saying this is like the hard and fast rule to do it, but think of it from a testing perspective as well. So when you're writing tests, while writing tests, ask yourself these questions. If my code is so difficult to understand, what can I do to help improve that, right? And that's why I focus on writing tests even more, because you're not just testing your logic, but they're also there as a documentation for your code. Can I split this code into smaller functions? Following functional programming concepts, bunch of those really cool spec, whatever terms, you want to make sure that you're splitting your code into smaller functions. Should I rename this function to something more obvious? This has happened to me all the time. I rename something, like, for example, foo, sometimes when I can't come up with names. Then I start writing a test. As I start describing what it's doing, I'll go back to it. I'm like, OK, I know exactly what this function name should be. Helps me get more descriptive about that. And how can I simplify my code so that it's less complex for others? So when you're writing tests, think of all these scenarios. Regardless of what you pick, you should write a test. I mean, like, you should. All right, so this is like a sample PR. Now, you will notice the brand change, FN change. So this slide was just created like last night. So I renamed it something, but whatever. So like for the story one, as a user, I would like to view every screen using the tab bar. We just saw that story. This is how my PR would look like a summary for using React navigation, shows inactive and active states. Android, this is a React Native project, and tab bars with keyboards are hard. It's like they're really hard. So I added a comment saying, it's like the tab bars don't look alike. You might notice that, but the screenshot or GIF helps with that. Some checkboxes so that, and this is like a PR template, so pull request template that GitHub provides. We can all add that to actually help us standardize the coding standards. Is there any necessary documentation added and stuff like that? So you'll see that iOS and Android build just because it's a React Native project. And we did not have a CI set up at that point, and that's why adding these checkboxes really help. Now that we've gone through how to create a pull request, let's go about how to review one. All right, be more empathetic. I'm all about empathy. As a reviewer, when you're reviewing a PR, it's extremely important to provide feedback in a very courteous manner. You need to remember, these are the teammates you like to go, have drinks with, have food with, go for long walks. Like, be nice, be empathetic, think from their perspective, see where they're coming from. Don't command, ask. We all are here to collaborate, write better code, and it's a shared code base. It's not my code or your code, it's our code. And as we all know, feelings can get hurt easily. They are humans. They have feelings, and feelings do get hurt easily. So be more empathetic during your reviews. And it's really important that you always think from their perspective as well, and they should think from your perspective. Don't be too serious. Have some fun. Make it fun to work with your colleagues. If you think about it, you're spending 8 hours a day with them. That's way more than you would spend with the family or whatever. So you make sure that you are empathetic with them, you're nice with them, like you're not that serious and you're actually having fun while doing this. Familiarize yourself with the code. So spend time on it, try to understand what they have done, what they did, why they did it, what they did it. But no matter what your skill level is, you should always get into the habit of teaching more than commanding things. So if you consider yourself a junior developer or a senior developer, always be in the habit of teaching. Use a friendlier tone. Ask them questions. Like, why did you do that? Don't say that. Always provide code suggestions. Again, rather than just telling them, hey, do this, provide them a suggestion that, hey, this is what I was thinking. This is where I'm coming from. Your code works, the pros and cons of that. And here's my approach. Let's discuss. And let's write better code, right? But always ask their thoughts. That's why empathy is really huge here. So rewording feedback. Let's take a look at an example. This will crash when it's null, so you should null check this. Like, sure, I'll do that. But it's like, what if you ask a question? What will happen if this value is null? A coworker is going to be like, oh, yes. I forgot about the most basic scenario, which is null checking. So yeah, I'm gonna think next time about this. There are some cases where this value might be null, and they will actually think because of the feedback that you gave them. But there's also a possibility that it won't crash. They actually they actually did some null check somewhere else. So, think from their perspective as well. Use emojis. So, online criticism is misinterpreted very easily. Hence, I think emojis are one of the best tools for communicating online. Using them automatically adds a really friendly tone to your conversation. Just like this, you all laughed. So use it when you start feeling that the conversation is getting a little bit serious. Like throw in an emoji here and there. Although, if that's not you, you don't force it. Keep it real. You be you. Don't have to force, don't have to get into the bandwagon with everyone. Take it offline. So if you find yourself going back and forth in conversations, you're actually spending more time thinking on what comments to add, and it's leading nowhere. You're just like discussing, going back to your feature, coming back. It's literally not going anywhere, and I've been there. I've done that. So there's no point spending time when you can quickly hop on a call if they're remote, or they're working from home or whatever, or just walk to their desk and just like, hey, you want to chat about this? Let's just hop onto a whiteboard and let's get next to the whiteboard and let's talk. When you meet someone face to face, you automatically develop more empathy. You understand their point of view and they understand yours. But when you do come to a conclusion, add a comment on the PR, for documentation purposes, because we all forget, as we have all established that. So that your readers, who are following along are also aware what you did and why you did it. So yeah, like call or walk. Nitpicks. So while reviewing code, you may find that some things are technically correct, but they're basically nitpicks. You're nitpicking on certain things. It won't necessarily block the approval of the PR itself, but something to consider. Nitpicks are important, but again, not technically correct. They can be related to grammar corrections, unintentional new lines, any aesthetics, code refactor, and so on. If you find that your coworkers are basically nitpicking about the same thing, you can make it a ES or a TS lint rule for it, right? Just because you all are nitpicky about the same thing. So why not just make it a rule for your whole code base so that you're not, I thought of this, I'm not gonna say, but I feel like saying it, Nitty the nitpicker, just like, okay, whatever. But yeah, don't litter code with nitpicks. I know that now that we have got this tool, so to prefix anything with nit, that's something I forgot to mention in this slide. Prefix it with nit whenever you're saying something. But yeah, don't litter code with nitpicks because you don't want to just impose yourself on them. Think collaboratively what your team wants to do, essentially. All right, how to respond to feedback. We went through like how to create a PR, how to review one. Let's talk about how to actually respond to feedback. If you think feedback is valid, implement it. This is like the #1 rule that really helped me in my career. It really helped me grow. And I personally think that if a suggestion is provided, it's better than mine, I'm going to do it. I take that as an opportunity to collaborate with my teammate and learn from them. Consider this as a possibility of improving your code. Ask for clarification, ask questions, and stuff like that. Things like, can you please provide an example? Can you please, clarify further? And few examples, as we are speaking about examples. I wasn't aware of this API. That's really useful. This is an elegant solution. I never would have thought of that, an emoji. That's an excellent point, change coming right away. And this is like, I say that a lot. Like, I find that the people I work with, all of them are really smart, and I feel like people just come up with a solution that really amazes me. And breaking up this function was a great idea, so much simpler now, emoji. So if you disagree, disagreements are bound to happen as different developers have different ways of writing code. Although try to voice your opinion in a very friendly manner. If you agree to them partially, let them know what you agree and disagree with. But provide a reasoning. Don't ignore the GitHub comment. that they made and spent time on, because I hate to say it, but that's a bit rude, just because they took some time out of their day to actually review a PR. I usually like to just do a thumbs up emoji whenever I looked at it, but I don't feel like saying okay or whatever. I'm like, okay, thumbs up, I'm gonna do it. Make your commit messages obvious. And this is more so like, I know that GitHub has a tool for rebasing and merging your commits and whatnot that really helps. But there's also another tool called Gitmoji. Essentially, you can emojify your Git messages. It really helps me because when I start working on a feature, I always go about implementing a feature, writing tests, PR comments, if there are any, documentation, and so on. There's an emoji for everything. So introducing a new feature, sparkles, bug, fixing a bug. If you did address some PR comments, that's an okay hand emoji, or writing any docs. That literally helps me in my team, and actually in a very recent one as well. Every time we all were following this tool, and every time they addressed my comments, I took a look at the commit which actually had that emoji, and I was like, okay, this is good. Thanks for doing that. And it really helps. They provide a very easy way of identifying the purpose or the intention of the commit as well. And this one is, again, I am all about testing. Once you fix a defect, add a test. Someone discovers a bug, may or may not be related to your code. A defect gets filed. Once you do fix that defect, add a test to make sure that you are actually addressing whoever broke. So the defect gets actually fixed, and there is proof that it's documented now. And you also get some brownie points for doing that. You also gain the additional trust of your team because now you have also added a test. So in future, if some similar bug is discovered, you can always rely on your test to take a look at it and be like, okay, but we fixed it. What went wrong? That means there's a new scenario that you didn't discover earlier. All right, story time. So I guess I would say I'm personally all about empathy. I always think from my coworkers' perspective, and I try to be, ask questions and be nice and everything. But when I first started out, once I graduated, I personally was really intimidated with the process of code reviews. I personally thought that I was doing a product development job, and I suggested something as part of the code review process because I thought that the approach that was taken wasn't correct. And I was looking for a link, but just couldn't find one. I personally felt that I was immediately shot down just because of the power struggles that were going on. And turned out there was a bug filed after. I felt really proud of that because I was like, yes, because I started out as a junior dev, I felt like I discovered something really early on. And this is why it really helped me, even empathize in general that just because no matter what your level is, if you're a senior developer, junior developer, intermediate developer, it doesn't matter. Anybody can discover a bug. Everyone thinks about code differently. So make sure that you listen to everyone and keep your ears open for that. It also happened, and the other story I wanted to share was a developer blasted this really huge PR, totally went in a cave, built a totally new tool, and changed something 250 lines of code. And we were all like, whoa, I did not expect my Monday morning to be like this. And again, due to power dynamics and such, we had to spend a lot of time on it. A coworker basically put it in a way that I really understood that. Imagine that every hour that you spend is attached to a dollar amount, right? So I don't know, $10 per hour or whatever. You wouldn't wanna, is it worth this much amount? Is it worth spending time on any of the work that they did or whatever? But whatever happens, just because of the power dynamics, we actually ended up spending 3 to 4 hours per person on that PR just to understand what they did, why they did it, and at the end, what happened was we didn't even end up using the tool. So it sucks, but at the same time, that's why I'm I always talk about empathy and collaboration and all of that stuff. And lastly, small things can have a big impact. What I mentioned in this presentation was something pretty basic. Like we've all been there, done that, gone through. I'm sure like I also might have been less empathetic at times or whatever, but these small things do add up. When I work with clients a lot, and when I start working with them, slowly and steadily we introduce these tools one by one with them. I personally find that that actually helped build a lot of client relationships that they always want to come back and work with us. And these small things can have a big impact and help improve your team culture. Having said that, thank you, everyone. My Twitter is Kulkarni Ankita 9. Yeah.